It's the cruelest paradox. You can mean everything to him and still watch him walk away. You can be the one who understands him, supports him, loves him with all you have, and somehow it's not enough to make him stay. And the question that keeps haunting you is this: if I truly meant everything, why wasn't I worth the fight? Why didn't he hold on when love was right here in front of him? You lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, torn between anger and heartbreak, because if love is real, shouldn't it be enough to keep two people together? So why does he retreat? Why does he distance himself? Why does he let go? Even when you are the very woman who means the most to him. It's one of the most unbearable contradictions. You can mean everything to him and still watch him walk away. You can be the one who knows his fears, the one who stood by him when no one else would, the one who poured every part of your heart into loving him, and still he lets go. And it leaves you with a pain that feels almost impossible to explain. Because if you truly meant everything, if you were his world, then why wasn't that enough? Why didn't he fight harder? Why did he choose distance over closeness, silence over words, walking away instead of holding on? These are the questions that keep circling in your mind, stealing your peace, keeping you awake at night as you stare into the darkness. You replay the memories again and again, searching for answers in places where there are none. You think about the way he once looked at you, the promises in his eyes, the warmth in his touch. You remember how safe it felt when he called you his everything, and now that same word feels like a wound. Because if you were truly everything, how could he leave? The confusion cuts deeper than the loss itself. When someone doesn't care, you can accept it, even if it hurts. But when he loved you, when you know he loved you, that's where the ache becomes unbearable. Because you're not just grieving him, you're grieving the version of him who swore he'd never walk away. You start questioning yourself in ways you never thought you would. Was I too much? Did I push too hard? Did my love suffocate him instead of strengthening him? The doubts creep in like shadows, and you begin to wonder if the very thing you thought made you irreplaceable was what made you disposable. And the worst part? No one else really sees what you're carrying. On the outside, it might look like just another breakup. But deep down, you know it wasn't that simple. He didn't walk away because you didn't mean anything. He walked away even though you meant everything. And that contradiction feels like a storm you're trapped inside of, with no shelter, no clarity, no way to quiet the thunder of questions inside your chest. Every corner of your life feels touched by his absence. The places you used to go together now feel like reminders. The songs you loved now sting with memories. Even your own reflection feels different because the woman who once felt chosen now feels abandoned. And yet, the cruel truth lingers in your mind. He loved me, I know he did, and still he left. That's the kind of pain that doesn't just break your heart. It shakes your very sense of what love means. Because if love isn't enough to make him stay, then what is? And how do you ever trust it again? So why does this happen? Why does a man who says you're his everything, who holds you like you're his safe place, still choose to walk away? It feels impossible to make sense of, doesn't it? You can accept if someone never cared. You can even accept if love slowly faded. But how do you accept that he walked away while his love was still alive? For women, closeness usually feels like safety. When love deepens, you breathe easier. You feel secure, knowing that his presence means commitment. But for many men, that same closeness stirs something entirely different. The deeper the love, the more vulnerable they feel. And vulnerability, for a lot of men, doesn't feel like safety, it feels like danger. You see, most men are taught, often without words, to equate strength with control, to stay composed, to never need anyone too much. And when he realizes that you truly mean everything to him, that he couldn't imagine life without you, that realization shakes the very foundation he's been taught to stand on. he no longer feels in control, and to him, that lack of control feels terrifying. That's why you sometimes see this contradiction. He tells you you're the most important woman in his life. You can feel the love in his touch, in his eyes, in the way he used to lean into you. And then, suddenly, he pulls back. Not because the love disappeared, but because it grew so strong that it exposed him. It reminded him how much he stands to lose, and instead of embracing that, he retreats into distance, believing it will protect him from the vulnerability that love demands. This is the hidden truth most women overlook. A man doesn't always walk away because he doesn't love you enough. Sometimes he walks away because he loves you so deeply it terrifies him. The thought of needing you, of relying on you, of being fully seen by you, it rattles him in ways he doesn't know how to handle. His leaving isn't always about lack of feeling. Sometimes it's about being overwhelmed by the very depth of it. But here's where the heartbreak deepens. While he's retreating out of fear, you're left carrying the weight of confusion. You think, if I was enough, he would have stayed. If I truly meant everything, he wouldn't have let me go. And so his fear turns into your self-doubt. His retreat becomes your shame, and you end up questioning yourself, when the truth is, you were never the problem. And yet, there's another layer here too. Some men walk away not because of what you lacked, but because of what being with you revealed in them. You showed them what real intimacy feels like. You held up a mirror to their hearts, and they saw the cracks, the fears, the parts of themselves they never faced before. And instead of rising to meet the love you offered, they backed away, because facing themselves felt harder than losing you. That's why his love felt real, because it was real. But love alone doesn't guarantee readiness. Love without the courage to stay vulnerable is fragile, and sometimes it breaks under its own weight. So when he walks away, it's not always because you weren't worth the fight. Sometimes it's because he wasn't ready to fight his own battles, the ones closeness stirred inside him. He thought leaving would give him back control, but all it really did was leave you questioning everything. But here's the part most women never realize. When a man walks away, even though you mean everything to him, the pain can feel unbearable. It shakes your confidence, it makes you doubt your worth, and it leaves you replaying every detail, wondering what you could have done differently. But as hard as it is, this is the moment where you reclaim your power. Not by chasing him, not by begging for answers, but by choosing to carry yourself with dignity and self-respect. That choice doesn't erase the heartbreak, but it does remind you that your value isn't tied to whether he stays or goes. The first step is to honor your emotions without letting them control your actions. Emotionally, this means giving yourself permission to grieve, to cry, to feel the anger and sadness that naturally come when someone you love pulls away. Pretending you don't care or bottling it up only deepens the wound. Practically, it means creating space for your feelings in healthy ways. Writing in a journal, talking to someone you trust, or even just allowing yourself quiet time to release the emotion. Imagine this. Instead of sending him a late-night text saying, "Please don't leave me," you pour those words onto a page you'll never send. You let yourself feel it fully, but you also protect your dignity by not putting it in his hands. The second step is to shift your focus back to yourself. When a man pulls away, it's easy to make him the center of your world, checking your phone every 5 minutes, analyzing every word he's ever spoken. But doing that only keeps you trapped in his absence. Emotionally, this means reminding yourself that your identity and happiness cannot be built around someone who walked away. Practically, it looks like redirecting your energy toward things that remind you who you are outside of the relationship. Picture this. Instead of isolating yourself and replaying the story in your head, you say yes to dinner with friends. You take that class you've been putting off, or you return to a passion that once made you feel alive. That decision doesn't mean you've stopped loving him. It means you've remembered to keep loving yourself. The third step is to use your voice when you get the chance, but to use it with calm clarity rather than desperation. Often, women either say nothing and swallow the pain, or they lash out in anger, hoping to pull him back. Neither of those approaches honor your truth. Emotionally, this means valuing your feelings enough to speak them, while also valuing yourself enough to stay calm and steady. Practically, it might sound like this. I know you cared about me, and I cared about you, but walking away without explanation left me hurt. If we can't build something stable, then I can't stay in this cycle. Imagine this. He reaches out after weeks of silence, and instead of rushing back in or ignoring him completely, you speak your truth with composure. You don't chase, you don't beg, you stand firm in your worth. That moment shifts the power back to you, because you've shown him that your heart is strong enough to love, but also strong enough to draw boundaries. And the final step, the one that gives you the greatest freedom, is being willing to let go if the relationship no longer serves your well-being. Emotionally, this may be the hardest, because love always hopes for change. But self-respect sometimes means accepting that love alone isn't enough to keep two people together. Practically, this looks like recognizing when his pattern of leaving outweighs the moments of closeness and choosing to stop waiting for him to become someone he's not ready to be. Imagine this. He leaves, comes back, leave again, and instead of staying in the cycle, you finally say to yourself, I deserve a love that stays. You step forward, not because the love wasn't real, but because your dignity and peace matter more than holding on to someone who can't hold on to you. These steps aren't about punishing him, they're about protecting you. They're about reminding yourself that even if he couldn't handle the depth of what you offered, that doesn't make your love too much or your heart too fragile. It makes you a woman of courage, someone who risked closeness in a world where many are too afraid to love at all. And the way you carry yourself through his absence will become proof that your worth was never tied to his presence. There comes a moment when you realize that the story isn't about why he walked away, it's about how you rose after he did. For so long your mind circled around the same questions. If I meant everything, why wasn't I enough to make him stay? How can love exist and still not hold him here? Those questions haunted you in the quiet hours, twisting your heart in knots, making you wonder if something about you was broken. But slowly, with every tear you wiped, with every breath you took on your own, you began to see the truth. His leaving was never proof of your weakness, it was proof of his limits. Because a woman like you, open, giving, capable of love that runs so deep, isn't easy to hold. You ask for honesty, not because you're demanding, but because you're worthy of it. You long for closeness, not because you're needy, but because your heart was built to connect fully. You stayed when things were heavy, not because you had to, but because you know what loyalty means. None of that makes you too much. It makes you powerful, and sometimes that power is what terrifies someone who isn't ready to meet it. You should feel proud of yourself for how you've loved. Proud that you didn't guard your heart so tightly that you never risked intimacy. Proud that you gave your best even when it scared you. The fact that he walked away doesn't erase the beauty of what you offered. It doesn't erase the strength it took to be vulnerable. In fact, it highlights just how rare you are, because not everyone can love at the depth you can, and not everyone can receive it. And here's where hope enters the picture. The right man won't walk away. The right man won't see your love as a burden. He won't grow distant when things get close. He'll grow closer still. He won't retreat from the weight of your heart. He'll feel honored to carry it with you. The right man won't need to lose you to understand your value. He will see it every single day, and he will stay, not because it's easy, but because he knows it's worth it. So instead of letting his leaving define your story, let it remind you of your strength. You survived the heartbreak that once felt unbearable. You lived through the silence that once cut you to pieces. And in surviving, you became the kind of woman who knows her worth is not negotiable. You became the kind of woman who no longer begs to be chosen because she already chooses herself. Walk forward with your head high, because you are not the woman he left. You are the woman who continues to rise. You are not the woman defined by absence. You are the woman defined by resilience. You are not the woman who lost. You are the woman who gained clarity, courage, and the power to demand more from love. And one day, when love comes again, you'll recognize it instantly. You'll see it not in grand gestures, but in the consistency, in the way he shows up, not just in words, but in presence, in the way he doesn't flinch at your closeness, but treasures it, in the way he doesn't walk away when things get real, but leans in, because he knows that with you, real is the only kind of love worth keeping. So take this heartbreak and let it become your crown. Take this loss and let it become your strength. Take this story and let it remind you that you were always worthy, always enough, always radiant, even in the moments he couldn't see it. And if you need words to hold on to, let these be the ones you carry. He didn't walk away because you weren't enough. He walked away because you were more than he was ready for. The right man won't need to lose you to know your worth. He'll recognize it while he has you. You are not broken by who left. You are defined by how powerfully you rise.